Throughout history, many people have examined the evidence regarding the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. To any unbiased observer who is willing to examine the gospel without prejudice, the accumulated evidence regarding the gospel record is truly overwhelming. For atheists, agnostics, and even Christians, what you are about to see may shock you. For the doubting Thomas of our day, this film will show you the wounds in the hands and side of the resurrected one, Jesus Christ.
It's identical to these pagan myths.
Modern icons, especially Jesus Christ, were as mythical as Hercules and Zeus and Athena and the goddess Thor and all the other gods that we have been taught to almost roundly dismiss. We certainly should not be harming each other over religious beliefs.
We have gods and goddesses in the ancient world who are raised from the dead, don't we? You say, you have to be specific and say, well, who do you have in mind? And what's the gap? Because except for Isis and Osiris, which, as one scholar pointed out, as many scholars have pointed out, is not really in a resurrection account at all, we have no ancient story which predates the resurrection of Jesus.
Many unbelievers will argue that Christianity was created by the political establishment for social control, but this argument is inconsistent with the message of the Bible. For instance, in the Gospel of John, Jesus referred to Satan as the ruler of this world. He said that the Holy Spirit will convict the world of judgment because the ruler of this world is judged. Also, Peter taught to obey God rather than men. Around AD 95, John received a vision which he recorded in the book of Revelation. John spoke of several beast empires throughout world history. He said, "And there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet to come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was, and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and is going into perdition." John the Revelator and Daniel the prophet spoke of a final beast empire and world government that would be ruled by 10 kings in the last days. John declared that the world leader will cause all people to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads in order to buy or sell. Contrary to the idea that Christianity was established for social control, the Bible teaches that all who take this mark or who serve this world government will be damned, but those who are beheaded for the witness of Jesus will reign with him in his kingdom.
Financial and healthcare applications.
One thing I would just suggest, I'm just an outside soon-to-be investor. I love this idea, by the way, Scott. I think this is great.
Thank you, Sean.
This is not to say that the Bible has not been perverted and taken out of context by the political elite for social control, as seen in the secret FEMA plan to use pastors as pacifiers in preparation for martial law. The debriefing tells pastors to help implement FEMA and Homeland Security directives. FEMA directors told pastors to preach specific passages to their congregations, like Romans 13. The Bible passage often taken out of context by dictators like Hitler to hoodwink Christians into supporting him.
And the text that I want us to focus on is Romans 13, verses 1 to 7. It has been used, for example, to justify unseemly conformity to the status quo both in this country and abroad. It was used to keep the church docile to the Nazi regime in Germany, and it has been used to impede the efforts in this country of those who have worked for equal rights for all races. And I want us to look closely to see what Paul is really teaching here, to see whether those uses are really abuses. If the authorities ever begin to punish the good and reward the bad, our submission to them is going to come into conflict with submission to God. It is right to resist what God has ordained in order to obey what God has commanded. We are being tested to see whether we will try to save our lives and be subject to the atrocities of the ruling power, or whether we will say with Peter, we must obey God rather than men, and risk the losing of our lives.
The lie that Christianity was created by the political establishment is among many false ideas being told today in contemporary films like The Da Vinci Code and Zeitgeist. In Part 1 of the film Zeitgeist, nearly 200 sources are cited in the transcript. Yet many of these sources are used more than once. For example, Manly P. Hall is cited 5 times. Albert Churchwood is cited 6 times. Timothy Freak and Peter Gandy are cited 7 times. Edward Carpenter is cited 8 times. Thomas Doane cited 19 times. D.M. Murdoch is cited twice. However, D.M. Murdoch also goes by the pen name Acharya S. Acharya S. is cited an additional 27, and Gerald Massey is cited 30 times. In fact, when the transcript for this film is examined in further detail, we see that less than 25% of these sources are original. The idea that Jesus is a copycat solar deity has been propagated by the self-taught Egyptologist and practicing Druid Gerald Massey, homosexual activist and philosopher Edward Carpenter, atheist Professor John Allegro, and authors Peter Gandy and Timothy Freak, and Acharya S. In 1970, John Allegro also wrote a book entitled The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross that suggests other ideas. Allegro proposed that the earliest Christians were actually a secret cult group that used hallucinogenic mushrooms and utilized the name Jesus as a code word to avoid letting outsiders know about their secret activities. Allegro was criticized immediately by almost every major historical scholar. The Times newspaper of London printed a letter signed by 15 scholars in the Semitic languages who dismissed his conclusion, stating that it was not based on any philological or other evidence that they can regard as scholarly. His book was denounced as an essay in fantasy rather than philology.